Good evening. I'm Richard Peake. I'm director of the Rare Books and Special Collections Library, and I'd like to welcome you tonight to this Neely series talk by Kurt White. The Neely series is made possible by the generosity of Andrew H. and Janet Dayton Neely. The next Neely series talk will be on February 17th, when Marcel Denisay will explore why puzzles have emerged in human cultures. Social critic, essayist, and novelist Curtis White is someone who continues to take a hard look at the puzzles of modern life. He has authored 5 novels, 4 books of nonfiction, 2 collections of short stories, and numerous articles and essays. His work has been widely excerpted and anthologized. In his The Spirit of Disobedience, Resisting the Charms of Fake Politics, Mindless Consumption, and the Culture of Total Work, White advises his readers to misbehave, make something beautiful, try to win. And someone who tries to win and to make beautiful things, and who, his friends assure me, only occasionally misbehaves, is student Patrick Daubert. Pat is an English major, class of 2011, and the curator of the Curtis White exhibit, which is now up in Rare Books, and which itself is a beautiful thing, Curtis White, The Barbaric Heart, and the Homeland. And Pat will be introducing Curtis White.
Hello. Thank you, Richard. I feel like I should begin with a list of apologies and grievances. I'd like to apologize to my mother, the first woman to have the misfortune of me. To my boss, Richard, I know you're counting on me to not make fools of us both. And Kurt, I'm not here to introduce you. I'm sorry. I've known for a few months now that I'd be giving the opening remarks, and so I've been reading books by Curtis White and all the interviews I could get my paws on, doing lots of mulling, just giving my thoughts a lot of space to grow. And I knew about 4 weeks ago that this project had fully invaded my mind when my dreams became involved. The first one I had is very special to me. It was hockey night in Mexico. The entire town of Guadalajara, Rochester had turned up for the big game, as close-knit communities are wont to do in support of their team. I didn't have a clear idea of anything, just that my family were with me. We'd driven there together in a pickup truck and entered the arena with the whole thronging mass. Now, the ice wasn't Mexican ice when we got there, although there were green jerseys and red helmets whipping around already. We had torn down a dirt road, presumably in Mexico, entered through the doors of the Blue Cross Arena, home to the Rochester Amerks, and then made our way through the sprawling lobby of the HSBC Arena, which is home to the Buffalo Sabres, and arrived ultimately to the dimly lit, dingy Lakeshore Ice Arena, which is home to the Monroe County Eagles, and it's about 15 miles that way, and it's where I play in a men's league on Thursdays. So we were suddenly there, and my gear was on, and I sauntered onto the ice to exchange some pre-game pleasantries with a Mexican player. What he said to me was something like "Vaya con Dios," which means "go with God," but those 3 words imparted much more than that phrase can usually muster. It was like he wished me success everywhere, in everything I did, even if it was at his defeat that my success came. And then he also was sort of telling me to please be good, because there is a heaven. And I was so happy. I sauntered right off the ice, and I did the clip-clop walking on skates walk into the stands and stopped in front of a wizened Mexican man. "You look different than you did in the dream." But I began to earnestly whine that I was not ready. I was unprepared. What would you have me say to introduce you? What do people like to hear? And he leaned a little back and said, slowly and prophetically, "Start with the melted sculpture of a man." I woke up with those words on my mind, and I wrote them down, and that advice has taken hold of me. So the job, as I see it, is that I prepare a puddle up here for him to come stand in. And that should be easy enough for me. I'm a boy. There's this nice privacy podium and everything. What we know for certain about Curtis White are only the barest of the bare essentials. The actual factual details that exist about this man, from book sleeves to his Wikipedia page, are quite stark. So I've prepared a sort of speculative history. We know Curtis White was born in San Francisco in an unknown month of the year 1951, that he attended schools of higher learning in pursuit of degrees and answers in the fields of philosophy and English. He lives in Normal, Illinois, where he taught until recently as a professor of English at the Illinois State University, and he's been the president of the board of directors at the Center for Book Culture and / Dalkey Archive Press, is how I always see it. I think that's it. That's literally all we know about him that isn't speculation. Here comes that. We gleaned that he doesn't feel quite like an American, that he identifies himself instead as more of a San Franciscan, and we can empathize. We have friends who feel similarly about San Francisco. We'd love to visit. They say it's sunny in the 60s year-round. While today, here in Rochester, we had a very nice day. It was glorious. It will soon be cold, and the skies will be red somehow at night, whereas they've got the life over there. But he lives in Normal, so I guess we can't be too jealous. We wonder how Curtis White knows all the good and new music that comes out. I thought maybe his students tell him, but I'd wager that he's the one informing them about it. He offered suggestion of a soundtrack for his latest book, The Barbaric Heart, and those songs and artists he elected for each section of the book were exceptional. We like of Montreal, and we love Radiohead, the Beach Boys, Bjork, Coltrane, Wagner, Dylan, Beck, Shostakovich. Come on! We suspect he hydrates as thoroughly as only sane diurnal mammals do. From a picture I saw, it looks like he owns a parrot, and we'd wonder what it says. In an interview called In the Shark Tank with Curtis White, he said of himself, answering a question geared toward the influence that generations before have on artists today, and specifically on him, no hippies, no Kurt. No 60s, no Kurt. No post-structuralism, no Kurt. No Hegel. Well, I won't get carried away. At the end of this interview, he poses a question to the readers, doubting that any exist on the internet. And he's asking them, don't you have anything better to do? And to answer you, no, I don't have anything better to do. It was my job to introduce you, and frankly, you scare me. So I was trying to be thorough. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, foes, enemies, I've been told I look like a frog with a mullet from the sides. Curtis White.
Excuse me for a moment while I take care of something technical. Yeah. Okay. Thanks are in order. Thank you to the University of Rochester for all the multiple ways in which you've been generous and hospitable to me in this brief stay. Thanks to the Neely series very much for having me in. And special thanks to my friend Richard Peak in Special Collections, who for one reason or another has found a lot of, thousands actually, of little scraps of paper and things I've done worthy of his collection. I'm not sure I could ever quite see it that way, but he's the expert.